Paul Rosen, have you ever heard of Poine, the Greek goddess of revenge? Poine, Poine. Her job was to bring retribution upon mortals who had angered the gods, and it's from her name, Poine, that we derive the modern word pain. That's where that comes from, the Greek
Very
goddess Poine.
interesting.
So in the past, though, there were cultures who dealt with pain in various ways. For example, doctors in past centuries prescribed opium, morphine, and heroin. I'd rather avoid those.
They still do.
Myself. Well, that's not good.
It's just legal. It's just a FDA approved version, but they still do use those things.
And does somebody do this still? Past cultures, for example, the Incas used to treat pain by drilling holes in the heads of patients. They thought that would release the pain.
Pressure.
Yeah. I suspect they had little luck with that. But anyway, we're talking about...
Actually, we'd still do the same thing, although it's not generally for pain unless it's a head injury.
Really? If they want to make a bowling ball out of your head, maybe they just start drilling?
Well, if there's bleeding on the brain, sometimes they'll actually drill a hole in your head. Yeah.
Ouch. Well, those are some of the cures for chronic pain that
but that's not what we're talking about today.
No, we're not drilling holes in anybody's heads here on Health Matters with Paul Rosen.
Well, we are talking about pain. And what I wanted to actually address is some of the most common pain patterns that I see in the clinic, that I have seen in my clinic over the last 25, 30 years. I mean, things like headaches and migraines and low back pain and foot pain and leg pain and joint pain and pain that moves all around the body, could be anywhere. And it turns out something very interesting, and that is that most chronic pain patterns that you cannot relate to a trauma, in other words, a trauma is not the cause, so most, has to do with the organs and glands within your body that are referring or perpetuating a neurological sort of feedback mechanism, and letting you know that something is wrong. It's just that generally most people don't know how to get to the root cause of what it is that's wrong.
So
does that make sense?
Really, yeah, it does. So let me interpret. I think pain is our body's way of telling us that we have something wrong.
Something's wrong.
It's kind of a distant early warning system for us to take matters into our own hands and see if we can find the cause of that pain.
And most often, and this is the knowledge, the secret, if you will. Most often, the root cause is an aggravated organ or gland in the body. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I can see that, but I would guess that the source varies quite a bit depending on where in your body that pain is emanating.
That is totally correct. So I thought what I would do, during this episode, is to talk about some of these patterns and relate them to organs or glands. So let's just start with chronic pain that moves all around the body. Sometimes it's in your shoulder, sometimes it's in your elbow, sometimes it's in your foot, sometimes it's in your knee. Anyway, it moves all around. That type of pain pattern is related to your liver. The second pain pattern, starting with the headaches, depending on where they are, in the back of the head, generally speaking, that's going to be your adrenal glands, your kidneys, or your bladder.
So we can be that specific depending on the location in the body where you're having pain.
Yes.
Now that's interesting.
In the front of the head or the sides, or generally the sides, let's focus on that. Then you're looking at gallbladder generally.
So who would relate that? I mean, before we're getting this information right now, who would think that a frontal headache would relate to the gallbladder?
Mm-hmm. Now, oftentimes there's more than one organ. So The frontal headache could be, that's where the bladder can be, and on the sides is more gallbladder. Now the interesting thing is that the thyroid, as you would imagine, Rod,
because the thyroid often relates to everything, right?
The thyroid
if you
is
have
connected,
a health issue.
Yeah, the thyroid is connected very directly to the gallbladder. So you can have migraine patterns where you've got migraines, the thyroid is almost always part of the problem.
And based on the location in your body of that pain, you can be very specific about which organ or gland is involved.
Definitely. So let's move from the head to the shoulders. Lots of times people will experience, neck and shoulder pain almost always is related to the thyroid. And then moving down the body, probably one of the most insidious chronic pain patterns is back. And the low back pain, most low back patterns are connected to a person's adrenal glands. But they can also be connected to bladder, and in men, prostate.
So let me postulate this, Paul. Let's say you lift something wrong and you have lower back pain. Have you aggravated your glands also?
Well, the question is, how did that happen? Most of the time, in most cases, those muscles were predisposed to injury because of the abnormal referring pain pattern from one of those three places: adrenals, bladder, or prostate.
It's a time bomb, really, by having these unhealthy organs and glands.
Very dramatic, Rod.
Well, there you go. I'm a dramatic kind of guy. But
Yes,
you're
you
just
are.
Waiting in those cases for the right set of conditions to create pain in your body. To use the lower back for an example.
And most of the time, people do have an inkling that something isn't quite right, but they don't pay attention to it. They don't give it much credence. For example, a little twingy, or feeling a little bit of weakness back there, or maybe even a mild pain that comes and goes, and then something happens. I had this experience. I know this for a fact. I was going to law school and I was under a lot of pressure, and I was also working and doing carpentry work, and I just reached over to pick something up, and my back literally, the force of the spasm just threw me to the floor.
Wow, well, that's pretty awful. Well,
And of course,
think
it was adrenal glands.
as you discovered. I think many people have had that experience. They're doing something relatively light, just reaching for something, stepping out of a car, picking themselves up from a chair, and they throw out their backs. That's
so
not unusual at all.
It turns out that if you're having these chronic pains, and you're doing acupuncture, and you're doing chiropractic, and you're doing massage, or worse, you're taking medications, and you're experiencing this is temporarily managed, then you are not getting at the root cause of the problem.
So what we need to do is figure out what pains we're having, how they relate to which organs and glands, and then make those organs and glands healthier. How do we do that?
You need to have, see, I pay him for that, folks.
Lightly, but nonetheless, yes.
You need to, true. You need to have a means by which you can measure the state of these organs and glands. And that's where the muscle testing comes in. You can literally, with a great deal of certainty, pinpoint which organ or which gland, and then you can actually discover why that organ or that gland or combination thereof are actually aggravated. And what are the aggravations generally? Talked about this many times. Could be food that you're eating, a reaction, body's reacting to some food you're eating. It could be an ongoing immune challenge. It could be chemicals that you're exposed to, both in the air, water, and food. It could be heavy metal that's accumulated in your body, for example. We've talked about this many times. It's very common for people to be using deodorants, perspirants, and antiperspirants will contain aluminum, for example, in them, or antacids that people take for to relieve heartburn contain aluminum, or dental amalgams will ultimately over time release mercury, and there are many other sources, right? And also one category that really deserves a podcast of its own, and that is the existence of or the result of prior injuries that create scars on the body.
Well, that's a laundry list of things you have to deal with. And muscle response testing is a means of determining what the issues are for you and how to treat them. And by the way, you can speak to Paul directly anytime at gethealthy@acunatural.com. Get healthy at acunatural.com. Paul also has a website, acunatural.com, with all kinds of excellent health information and podcast editions of this show. You can also find us on Facebook and other social media.
YouTube.
We're on YouTube too. So we're everywhere with this information. And in particular, in this case, in this program, information about chronic pain. You've heard about how you can diagnose that maybe, and better, how to get rid of it.
I thought I would the scar issue is kind of interesting because I can relate a one situation where a gentleman came to see me and he'd had back pain for, oh my gosh, an interminable amount of time, and he was addicted to, to legal morphine, and it didn't really matter what he did; he could never get rid of it. And I discovered that he had a appendectomy, and he had an obvious huge scar on his torso, his belly, and I did what I do. Took out a cold laser light and treated that scar, and pain that he had for more than several years disappeared on the table. Gone. Boom.
Well, there you go. Dramatic results like that.
So anyway, so those are the categories. That's what we're looking for. Those are the root causes of most chronic pain. There's a lot of pain that that may not fit in that area, but most will. And Dave, a patient of mine, Dave had chronic body pain as well as fatigue, and he had been taking a number of supplements to try to help this and that and whatnot without success. Also found that he had some food issues and perhaps some other things. And so with the introductory background information, let's bring it all to life with one of my patients who was kind enough to engage in discussion about how he came to muscle testing, and how he came to see me, and why he came to see me, and then what happened to him, and how he was able to finally get the answer to his health problems. And let's just listen to a few segments of Dave, because that brings it to life, don't you think?
I think so. Here we go.
Brings it to life for folks, and hopefully you out there can relate to this. And then, should you decide to want to treat the root cause of your chronic pain, then I'd be happy to help. In the meantime, take it away, Dave.
Let's start, David. I mean, how did you come? Why were you searching in the first place? How did it all start?
Well, I wasn't 100% well, and I wanted to continue to improve my health. And so I was looking around for different avenues to do that. And I heard you on the radio, and then I went to your seminar, and I heard other people stand up and, talk about how you have helped them. And so I came to see you, and I'm having some pretty good results.
But let's go back. That's terrific. And so, well, actually, what was the talk? I mean, was the talk worthwhile? What was it like? How did it strike you?
Yeah, I thought it was very worthwhile, and I thought that it made a lot of sense. And after seeing you, the thing that I like about what you do is, opposed to what I've experienced other places, is it's not a shotgun approach. I mean, you're able to find out really what the body needs to heal.
Sort of.
And,
yep.
In the past, I've had different tests done, and then they'll say, okay, well, let's try this, and, oh, let's try that, without, really knowing if it's going to help or not. In fact, my cabinet in my kitchen is full of things that I've just tried, to see if it helps me, become better. So,
oh, boy, I know that one. I mean, my cabinet in my office. I think we sort of were simpatico on that. I told you that I had actually discarded some $5,000 plus worth of Chinese herbal formulas, not because they're not good, because I love Chinese medicine. It helps lots of people, but because I could not have that, I did not feel that sense of certainty that when I said to David, this is what's going on, this is what I recommend, you will experience results.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, oh my goodness, how much money have we spent, huh?
Yeah, thousands.
Thousands. So let's go back even a little bit before that, David. I mean, you had a very interesting, adventure. I mean, what was your health like even before, you came to see me?
Well, it wasn't super bad, but I had some chronic things, and then it was a little bit scary for me too, because I was super sick. I mean, I had two doctors tell me at one point I'd lose ability to walk, and one of the two told me I would actually pass away. And
why? I mean, what were you experiencing?
Well, I got hurt at work, and then when I couldn't work, my ankles were swelling up, my hips were swelling up, my hands were swelling up.
Wow.
It hurt to walk. The only comfortable position really for me was to stand up straight, because my hips hurt so bad it hurt to even lay down.
Wow.
I was in constant pain, and I actually years later I found a guy that said that, and I was like in this state for probably about 6 years before I kind of found out what part of the cause was, and was able to somewhat clear that up. But I found another guy that said, when you're in that much pain, it depletes all the neurotransmitters in the brain, and he put me on amino acids and B vitamins, and that helped a lot. But it just seemed like I was missing a key piece of the puzzle on getting 100% well.
Yeah.
And that's when I came to see you. And,
yeah.
And we've made some really, really good progress, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I mean that's the that was exactly my story. Although my symptoms were different, and they were because of the cause was different, but it was the missing piece.
Right.
It was that key piece of the puzzle. What is it? I mean, am I going to live for the rest of my life in this debilitated, total lack of quality of life? I mean, that was not an entertaining idea.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was just like, God, if this is my life, take me home. I mean,
that was my sentiment exactly, and I don't know how many times I said it.
Yeah.
All right, here's part 2 of Dave's story.
What specifically, that missing piece you're talking about? What specifically were you experiencing or suffering from, or what were the symptoms that that were occurring that caused you to believe there was some missing piece?
Well, like I even told you in the office when I went to see that other practitioner, and we tried those amino acids and B vitamins and things like that. That helped a ton. I mean, I was had super chronic fatigue all the time, and then but the thing that was scaring me is sometimes my finger would hurt. I would have this arthritic symptom my finger. And then the other thing that would happen would be that I would get really tired in the afternoon, and that just kind of made me feel like, well, shoot, maybe my health is going in the wrong direction again, or I'm not as stable as I really should be.
Right, because you had actually done that sort of hypervitaminosis thing. That is, you were fortunate. You found a really good guy, and he knew something about nutrition, and he knew something about how the body responded with respect to certain vitamins, and those vitamins were more than likely synthetic, so you were using excessive amounts, and for some people you can get some symptom relief. And one of the things that I hope you have learned is that you're still using those things like prescription medications, because you're just affecting the alarm bell, the symptom. You're actually not necessarily addressing the root cause. And the way those vitamins work, those synthetic vitamins work, is actually to recruit the factors within the body, the chemical factors within the body, so that the body can actually even utilize them at all, because they're just fractionated substitutes. You know what I'm saying? So what happens there is that at some point, and most people experience this, especially with vitamin B. For any of you folks out there who have utilized vitamin B shots or excessive amounts of vitamin B, you may experience an increase in a decrease in your symptoms, including an increase in energy. But you'll notice that you have to use more and more and more, and the shots at some point begin to lose their quote unquote effectiveness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think in a way, that's kind of what I experienced, actually, is where, my symptoms totally went away for a while, but then it felt like they were kind of slowly coming back a little bit.
Exactly.
To where before I would have to pull over the side of the road and take a nap because I was so tired in the middle of the afternoon. And for a while that completely went away, but then it started to, slowly come back. And
right.
it was a little scary.
Oh, yeah. But you understand why now?
Yeah.
Because basically what you were doing, and what is often done, is to try to use vitamins and herbs just like prescription medications. So certain vitamins have supposedly certain effects on the body, but you're just using them as drugs rather than finding the missing piece and utilizing supplements such as standard process, and you took some of those in the past, I think.
I don't know that I took standard process.
Oh, okay. I thought you had. I took
branched chain amino acids, which,
Yeah.
But I mean, even actually, the other thing that was interesting about taking some of the amino acids is I came into your office with knee pain on the side, and it was so bad I was almost thinking about going to see a physical therapist. And then you said, okay, let's find out what's actually causing it. And it turns out it was soy that was in acid products that I was taking.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I really appreciate, is that when I am spending the money, at least I know that I'm spending money on things that are going to help me.
Again, we're hearing from Dave, Paul Rosen's patient, here on Health Matters with Paul Rosen. Dave, they're describing his pain being so bad that when driving at some points, Paul, he had to pull over just to take a nap and try and get rid of the pain and the fatigue he was feeling.
And once again, this was related to an aggravated organ, and we tracked it down using the technology that I have at my disposal. And sure enough, it turned out to be a food challenge, or in this case, soy. Soy, generally speaking, that isn't prepared according to the traditional Oriental ways of fermenting, is a major source of creating pain patterns for, oh my gosh, I would venture to say millions.
Get healthy at AccuNatural.com. Get healthy at ACUNatural.com to speak to Paul 24/7. Shall we hear part 3 of Dave's story?
And also go to that website too, the AccuNatural.com. Part 3.
You mentioned some of the other methods that you had tried to help, your symptoms. And I think, I don't know, did you ever take any prescription medications, or did you just avoid that on the front side?
Yeah, pretty much I avoided prescriptions, but I mean, I was taking some over-the-counter stuff. I mean, the other thing that I was having before I came to see you is I was getting these tension headaches in the back of my neck. I mean, all the neck muscles would tighten up, and then, I would, take Aleve, some of the over-counter type stuff, and then when I'd have the inflammation in my finger and my hand, I was taking a product that seemed to work pretty well, but like you said, I think it just was turning off the alarm bell and just relieving the symptoms and not really getting to the root cause of the problem.
And we were able to figure out the root cause, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was?
My body wasn't regulating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Your body wasn't regulating. And in particular, especially, and we talked about this, but especially in the neck, people who are having, neck problems in general, with that tightness, stiffness, even pain, consistent shoulders, even between the shoulder blades, look to the thyroid. Look to the thyroid. Fix that baby. You can fix it. We have been, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I bring it up, David, is because, the overwhelming majority of people utilizing Western medicine and the conservative approach, when they're having these symptoms, reach for the over-the-counter stuff instead of realizing that there is a nutritional cause, and that cause is the effects of the nutritional deficiencies are affecting their organs and glands like the thyroid. And for those of you folks who have already discovered you've got a forest fire, that is to say you've been to a doctor, you've gotten your blood tests, and your blood tests show that you've gotten too much thyroid stimulating hormone going on, because the body is trying to tell the thyroid to work, get to work, you lazy thyroid, and it can't, because of the missing piece. And then the doctor will say, okay, fine, you've got to take a hormone replacement therapy, and you'll have to take that for the rest of your life. And the bottom line is, it isn't true, it isn't true, it isn't true. Period. Now, I know for you, David, that wasn't, your main issue, or at least you thought, but it was clearly part of the problem.
Yeah, you obviously can speak to this better than me, but I've heard that the thyroid regulates the immune system, and sometimes I was having these chronic colds and sinus things that would go on for a long period of time, and that was probably part of the picture as well.
Exactly, and that's the thing. So for folks who have chronic sinus problems and are taking antibiotic after antibiotic after antibiotic, you ain't getting it. You're not getting it. Fix the thyroid. Also, you got to fix the adrenal glands too. And of course, that was one of the things that you found out. The root of that fatigue was those adrenal glands.
Yeah, and the other thing that I thought was good is that we were able to make some adjustments. I would tell you what the symptom was, and then you tell me what to do to, help the body heal. And
it would do it. It would definitely do it.
Yeah.
And what was the evaluation painful?
No, not at all.
Was it? Had you utilized muscle testing before, or was this your first experience?
No, yeah, I've used it before, and I had really good success with it, so I believed in it. But the thing that I found interesting about your aspect is the thing that you were talking about, where the body switches.
Oh, the regulation part.
Right, because I've heard people say, well, muscle. I've read things where people say, oh yeah, this guy muscle test me, and it doesn't work. Well, if the body switches, that's probably why.
They're not finding the root cause of regulation.
We're hearing Paul Rosen's patient Dave talk about how he got rid of some of his pain and fatigue. And a couple of points there, Paul, one of which is that he was able to, or you were able to, diagnose the source of his pain being his adrenals right there.
Mm-hmm. And of course, as was mentioned, sinuses and, chronic colds like that, thyroid is always a part of that issue. Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy for him that he was able to correctly diagnose the source of those problems. And improve his quality of life dramatically. Again, he was so tired sometimes that he had to stop what he was doing and just rest for a little while because he couldn't continue. It was that bad for him.
Yeah, and of course, nobody likes to be in chronic pain, and generally speaking, chronic pain can come and go, doesn't necessarily stay at the same level of severity, and that's all about that term that came up called regulation. You can think of regulation as the body's. So the body has this own, complete mechanism, essentially, which is independent of our own consciousness and ability to control, whereby so many of the everyday processes of the body takes place completely out of our hands. And in order for that to successfully proceed, there has to be a balance. There can't be anything obstructing or impinging any of those processes, and that operation, those processes are reflected in a state of regulation, and if they're not operating, a state of dysregulation. And if you have a symptom that comes and goes or comes and stays, your body is not balanced. It is not regulating. And no matter what you do, no matter how many medications, how many supplements of various sorts, herbs, vitamins, whatnot, that you apply, you'll get either no result or intermittent result. So you have to know about regulation. You have to know what it is. You have to know how to identify whether or not it's occurring, and then go from there. And that is what the testing allows us to do. Let's wrap it up. Let's hear his conclusion and give people an opportunity to contemplate their own condition and desire to be healthier, to be well, to be symptom-free. Go for it, Dave.
Yeah, it was really worthwhile, and it was interesting to see some of your patients there and have them stand up and tell a little bit of what their experiences were.
Yeah, and that's why and I do so very much appreciate your willingness to spend time with me this morning, because, it's one thing for me to be on the radio and tell people, oh, Paul Rosen is, will do this great thing for you or this or that. But when you hear it from someone who's been looking, and really, I'm you, I'm the rest of them. This is how I found this. I just happened to turn it into my passion and my profession to help others. But wouldn't you think that was? It sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So what's the biggest surprise that that you've experienced from being on your nutritional healing program using this nutrition response testing?
Well, the biggest surprise was that it wasn't that hard really to change my diet. And the other thing that's exciting about it is, the cravings are going away, and I feel satisfied.
Wow. I know, it's so bizarre. As a chocoholic, I will tell you, I never thought in a million years that I could actually look at a Mr. Goodbar chocolate covered peanut and go, what? Are you kidding me? Does that taste as good as I feel today? And the answer, of course, is absolutely not. That was the test that Beth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Beth at the office. That was her test. She would always say to herself, and then, of course, she's helped so many people with me. She always says to patients, you just have to think to yourself, is that going to taste as good as I feel right now? And what would happen if you ate soy? For you, personally.
Well, I know that I had the knee pain. I avoided it. I think that would be maybe the alarm bell, is that maybe the knee pain would come back, and then I would know to knock it off.
Right. So there really is only one diet, and we talked about this earlier when I was talking. There's really only one diet for everybody, and it's not in a book. Your body has its own agenda, and we can find it, can't we?
Yeah.
We can find it, and that diet is the one specifically designed for us, specifically designed for you. And what are I guess you would say, this is a question sort of redundant in a way, but it would be worthwhile, I think, for others who just tune in, are your efforts proving worthwhile? toward achieving the results that you'd hoped for.
Yeah, my symptoms are going away, and my health is stabilizing. So that's really exciting. And the other thing is I know that the path that I was on, I was probably going to develop Alzheimer's or Parkinson's later on in life. And I think that, I don't know that, maybe when I'm 110, I'll develop some of those things, but I know that, it's not going to be, a short-term concern.
How has your life changed with respect to things you could or could not do before the nutrition response testing evaluation and working with us?
Well, I'm not crashing in the middle of the afternoon, and I just feel like I have the freedom to live my life without fear. I think the fear is going away, which is really exciting.
Oh yeah, I mean, living in fear is absolutely. I mean, that in of itself is completely, undoing. It's totally unnerving.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah,
that is huge. So, what would you recommend to anyone else that you cared about, friend, family member, people you work with? I mean, what would you say to them if they were inclined to avoid prescription medications, or were on prescription medications and wanted to get off? I mean, what would you recommend?
Well, I'd recommend they come see you and get checked out, or if they're not really sure yet, then they can go to one of your seminars and hear other people's stories and get an overview of how the system works. Yeah.
David, thank you so much for spending this time. I really, really appreciate it, and I know that you and I have helped someone out there. Maybe they'll step up, on Monday. Maybe they'll step up, on a year from now. But I know if they, having heard us talk, it's going to inspire somebody. So thank you so much for spending this time.
Sure, glad to do it.
Okay.
And maybe that's the bottom line there, Paul Rosen, as we hear the conclusion to your patient Dave's story. You have to step up. You have to realize what the issues are with you, in particular with your chronic pain, and take steps to fix it.
Well, the key is knowing, about alternatives. I mean, what's the alternative? What can you do besides what you're doing? Maybe you've tried a number of things and you think, oh my gosh, nothing will work. This is an opportunity to go through another door and more likely than not, finally handle the problem. I do that for so many people. And I also wanted to say, by the way, as far as talks goes, of course, because of COVID, there are no public talks. So if you want more information, you can simply call my office, speak to Beth, and she'll answer any questions that you have about coming on the program or learning what it costs or anything like that.
You can get all that contact information at acunatural.com, acunatural.com. And of course, you can write to Paul about your issues at gethealthy at acunatural.com, gethealthy at acunatural.com.
In conclusion, all of us at AcuNatural Family Healthcare wish all of you the best. And don't forget, nothing sparkles like good health. And good health depends on what you put in your mouth. Take the sugar out of your life and put the sweetness back in. The symptoms you suffer from today are a reflection of the choices that you made yesterday. To accomplish what others don't, you've got to do what others won't. You ate your way to your illness. You can eat your way to wellness. It's the food, folks. Remember to keep yours fresh.